And then the U.S. sees this and it responds by sending warships to the area around Taiwan to tell Beijing to back off.
Our purpose in being here is to demonstrate the presence and commitment of the United States to peace and stability in the region.
With 2 U.S. naval battle groups now in the South China Sea, the war of nerves intensifies.
So this is that U.S. policy of look but don't touch.
Right. And some people say that this moment was the first big test in this three-way dynamic that the U.S. established with its policies on Taiwan. And this is a type of action and reaction involving military forces that becomes a defining pattern in relations in the coming years.
Right. The pattern is that China has this unfinished business with Taiwan, and it's frustrated by the role of the United States, and each country is responding to the other's moves with Taiwan in the middle.
That's right. And this sense of impending conflict has gotten a lot higher in recent years, especially because we've seen a more aggressive leader emerge in China. Xi Jinping, the current leader of China, has made some very bold statements on Taiwan. After he took power in 2012, he said that the problem of Taiwan cannot be passed on from generation to generation. And for some people, that suggests that Xi might make some bold and decisive move on Taiwan in the near future to resolve that issue. And then in the U.S., you also had this transition from President Obama to President Trump, who was a lot more confrontational with China.
Right. Trump campaigned on how he was going to be tough on China.
That's exactly right. So, for example, after Donald Trump won the election in 2016, officials who worked under President Trump took a much more assertive position on China. And by the end of the Trump administration, they were trying to figure out ways to strengthen Taiwan and the government there as a bulwark against China. And we've seen the Biden administration continue to take assertive actions around the Taiwan Strait. Biden officials have continued sending warships through the strait as a signal to Beijing. And President Biden himself has said 4 times now that he will have the U.S. military defend Taiwan if China were to try and take military action against the island.
So at this point in the story, it almost seems like the U.S. is just as fixated on Taiwan as China is. Why?
Well, some U.S. national security officials think Taiwan is an important strategic point to contain China. So, for example, they want to make sure that the Chinese military cannot extend its reach beyond Taiwan and into other island chains in the far Pacific. And they think that as long as Taiwan remains autonomous and has robust military forces, it'll be difficult for China to do that.
So an important check on China's military power.
Exactly. At this point, Taiwan has the world's most advanced semiconductor industry. And as you know, these chips that their companies make are used in everything from appliances in our household to the most advanced military systems that the United States and other countries deploy around the world. So the U.S. sees the Taiwanese semiconductor industry as something that it must protect, and it views it as a sector that China cannot get its hands on.
Okay, so Taiwan has really come to symbolize this battle between the two superpowers over military power, over the economy. I mean, it really feels like it contains the fate of the future of the world in a lot of ways.
Sabrina, when I talk to U.S. officials here in Washington, they also speak about it in these very high stakes terms. And some of them are openly speculating on whether the U.S. and China will end up fighting a war over Taiwan in the coming years. But no one wants that war.
And where does all of this leave Taiwan?
Well, of course, the Taiwanese don't want war over their island. So even today, you see Taiwan's leaders trying to very carefully calibrate their actions. We saw that recently when House Speaker Kevin McCarthy met with President Tsai Ing-wen in Southern California. President Tsai could have invited him to Taiwan, but she chose to meet with him on U.S. soil instead. We saw how the Chinese reacted. They sent warships and airplanes around the Taiwan Strait, but that was a much less intense military action than other things they've done in the recent past.
So Taiwan was kind of just testing the line, right? Gauging how far it could go without provoking the full fury of China.
Yes, and I think President Tsai's calculation is an example of the tightrope that Taiwanese leaders and citizens have walked for decades.
It's interesting because I would think that Taiwan would be in a pretty vulnerable position, but you're talking about Taiwan as having agency.
Yeah, in many ways, it's counterintuitive, Sabrina. Many people think of Taiwan as this tiny island of 23 million people living in the shadow of China. And it's true that Beijing has taken steps to diplomatically isolate them from much of the world. But the Taiwanese see themselves as being much more than a pawn in a geopolitical contest between superpowers. And despite all the pressure on them, they've managed to build an important economy over the years. They've created a new government and they put democracy into practice. And they managed to avoid armed conflict over their island through all these decades. So when I talk to Taiwanese officials and citizens these days, many of them tell me that the fate of the island is really in their hands.
Ed, thank you.
Thanks, Sabrina. It's always great to talk to you.
Edward Wong is a diplomatic correspondent for the New York Times.
The Daily is supported by Progressive. Progressive Commercial Insurance offers personalized rates and customizable coverages for your business vehicles. More at progressivecommercial.com. And by JLL. JLL strives to combine.
The 7 p.m. session of Roanoke City Council is hereby called to order, and I will ask our clerk, Ms. Susie McCoy, to please call the roll.
Mr. Pretty?
Here.
Vice Mayor Cobb?
Here.
Ms. White Boyd?
Here.
Mr. Vollison?
Here.
Ms. Moon Reynolds?
Here.
Ms. Sanchez Jones? And Mayor Lee.
Here, and a quorum is present. I will be delivering the invocation tonight, and following that, I will be leading you in the Pledge of Allegiance. Sometimes you have to do double duty on this job, but welcome everybody. So if you would, please stand. Eternal God, our Father, we come to you tonight, first and foremost, to thank you for another day that you've given us. And Lord, we ask you to guide and direct this council as we come together to do the business of this city. And help us, Lord, to do those things which are pleasing in your sight. And we thank you for all of the people that are represented here tonight, Lord, and we ask you to watch over them and protect them as they go back and forth. And Lord, we just got so much to give you thanks for. And Lord, as you have looked upon us and blessed us, because we recognize all of our blessings come from thee, we give you praise, we give you honor, and we give you all the glory. It is in your Son's name that we pray. Amen. Amen. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, well, welcome and thank all of you for attending our session tonight. This is our second session of council today, and so we're pleased to have you. I do want to recognize Laura Canini, Laura. All right, Laura Carnini, Laura. Thank you. You're replacing attorney Tim Spencer, who's on vacation, and so thank you for sitting in and being prepared to tell us the rules and the directions and all of those things that we need to abide by. All right, the first order of business is to come out of closed session, and I'm going to ask council member to offer a motion. Mr. Vollison.
I move, with respect to any closed meeting just concluded, that each member of City Council in attendance certify to the best of his or her knowledge that only public business matters lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements under the Virginia Freedom of Information Act, and only such public business matters as were identified in any motion by which any closed meeting was convened, were heard, discussed, or considered by the members of council in attendance.
Second.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, could you please call the roll?
Mr. Pretty?
Abstain because I was not present.
All right. Vice Mayor Cobb?
Aye.
Ms. White Boyd?
Aye.
Mr. Vollison?
Aye.
Ms. Moon Reynolds?
Aye.
Ms. Sanchez Jones?
Aye.
And Mayor Lee.
Aye, and a quorum is present. All right, the first order of business tonight is a presentation by our Youth Services Citizen Board, and they're going to update us on youth activities and Youth Summit. And youth representative of the Youth Service Citizen Board, sponsored by the city manager, but I'm delighted to see our former colleague on City Council, Ms. Anita Price, who will come. Thank you.
Thank you. And I must say, first of all, good evening to the mayor, and thank you to Bob Cowell for sponsoring us. And I know this has been a long day, but I do want to thank you all for this opportunity to just give you some highlights of our past Youth Summit. This is the first time since 2020 that we've been able to come forward, and we just thought, in light of so many things that are going on, that it was very important that we take this opportunity, and I promise you we will not be long. So I'd like to call upon our Youth Services representatives, Ms. Kennedy Wade and Javion Tucker. They are representatives from Patrick Henry High School. And then we also have Mr. Kevin McNeil. He is one of our representatives from William Fleming High School. So without further ado, I will turn it over to them.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
I'm going to begin with a brief background to our annual Youth Summit. The Roanoke City Youth Services Citizens Board initiated the first Youth Summit in 2014. This marks our 9th summit. Each year, the summit is rotated between William Fleming and Patrick Henry High School. The purpose of the summit continues to be an opportunity for youth to be uplifted, valued, and most importantly, to be heard. Many youth summits from student recommendations have also been held that focus on a specific topic. Past workshops have included dealing with healthy relationships, coping with stress, time management, social justice, media safety, and self-expression through arts. Last year, coming out of COVID, the summit sponsored a showcase on youth talent held at Washington Park. Each summit includes an opportunity for youth voices through feedback and surveys. We use this feedback to plan our ongoing activities that youth feel is important to them and to feel supported. This year's summit was held March 4th at William Fleming High School. We had over 100 youth and their families to attend. Every middle school except James Madison and both high schools were represented. Student participants were given the opportunity to attend 3 of the 5 workshops offered. We will now give a brief description of the workshops.
This slide up here, this is Cutting Confidence, facilitated by Mr. Doug Pitzer. Students made creative posters to express how they see themselves, express emotions, and where they see themselves in the future. The It Girl, facilitated by Ms. Lorena Wilson, provided an honest conversation on skin and hair care as related to self-love. Youth Circle was led by Mr. Antonio Stovall. These sessions provided an opportunity to practice mindful meditation while encouraging open dialogue and the power of listening without judgment. Help Save the Next Girl was presented by Lieutenant Boswell of Roanoke City Police Department and provided vital tips on how to keep oneself and friends safe. Making Waves in Our Neighborhoods, facilitated by Reverend Tim Harvey and Jane McCadden, brought the Soul Box Project to show how art can reveal the gunfire epidemic in our neighborhoods and imagine a better and safer community. After the workshops, After the workshops, everyone came to the cafeteria where 20 vendors representing youth resources were set up. We were able to get valuable information from Hollins College to the Sheriff's Department, and that also included lots of giveaways, freebies, and a DJ. In addition, lunch was provided by Chick-fil-A. We had fresh fruit donated from RCPS and delicious ices. As stated before, at every youth summit, we asked for student feedback. This year, the question presented was, what does Roanoke need? What do you see here is a summary of what we received. Many of the responses indicated desires for feeling safe and an opportunity to express their emotions, more teen events, more teen activities, and safe places for teens to hang out. The Youth Services Board is currently planning our next steps, which includes the next summit. We are aiming for a back-to-school event in the collaboration with Roanoke City Schools. And now that we are post-COVID, the board will pick up our plans. We had to expand our youth reps by adding students from the middle schools. In closing, I would like to thank our board members, and I would like to ask if any of them are here, if they would stand, please. And we would also like to thank Ms. Angie O'Brien, Ms. Carol Corbin, Roanoke City Schools, and a big thank you to Roanoke City Council for your continued support. Thank you. I'm sorry, is there any questions? Yeah.
I want to make sure we get a list of these needs, and Wingstop, Dave and Buster's, and we can get there we are. Is that, thank you so much. Okay, thank you.
Any more questions or comments?
Mayor?
Yes.
I was there that day at the summit, and it was really great to see all of our youth out there and learning such great skills, especially when we're having such issues with youth violence. Having somewhere for folks to be on the weekend was really impactful, and I'm really proud of y'all and what you did to help throw that summit, so thank you for what you've done.
Thank you.
I was really impressed with the workshops that you created. It seemed they were all very interactive. What was some of the feedback you got from the youth who participated in the workshops?
So from a lot of the youth, as teenagers, we are told that if you express your feelings too much or you cry too much, you're a crybaby, or, like no one wants to hear what you have to say. So a lot of the youth felt as though they finally had an opportunity to feel heard, not feel judged, and, not worry about it ending up on social media. And they were just really in tune with themselves and, being able to just feel free and feel like they have a place to talk and a safe space, which is what a lot of the comments that I've heard.
If there's anything else, thank y'all so much.
I'm just going to say something. I just want to say that I'm very proud of you. I know it took a lot of work to pull this off. So thank you for all you did, as Ms. Price, Ms. Angie, and everybody else that was involved planning this event. Thank you.
Okay, does that conclude that? I thought I was going to hear a lot from our former city council member. But thank you all for coming out tonight. Thank you all for doing what you do, and we need you to speak up now. We need you to speak up because we're putting a lot of emphasis on our youth in our community. So I'm delighted to see you here and see all of you. All right. Madam Chair, our next item is item 16 is public hearing.
Yes.
All right. We have a request of Star City Real Properties LLC to rezone a portion of property located at 2733 and 2739 Orange Avenue Northeast, official tax map numbers 7070 111 and 77-112 from mixed-use district to commercial general district with conditions. Chris Burns of Blazer and Associates is the spokesperson. So there's an ordinance.
Move the ordinance. Second.
All right. Madam Clerk, please read the title paragraph.
An ordinance to rezone a portion of certain property located at 2733 and 2739 Orange Avenue Northeast from MX Mixed Use District to CG Commercial General District, subject to certain conditions proffered by the applicant, and dispensing with the second reading of this ordinance by title.
All right, thank you. The City Planning Commission recommends approval of this rezoning. And so, Mr. Burns, I want to recognize you. You don't have to say anything. If you want to comment or if there are any questions, you can respond to questions from council. Okay. Well, I'm going to open the public hearing. All right, and are there any citizens, Madam, that have signed up?
Not on this issue.
Okay. So I'm going to close the public hearing, and at this time, ask my colleagues if they have any comments or questions. All right, hearing none, I'll ask our clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. Pretty?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Cobb? Ms. White Boyd?
Aye.
Mr. Volleson?
Aye.
Ms. Moon Reynolds?
Aye.
Ms. Sanchez Jones? And Mayor Lee.
Aye, and the ordinance passes. At this point, I'm going to turn the remainder, well, just the next session of our business tonight over to our Chair of Personnel, Ms. Trish White Board, and she can just share with you what we're doing and what we're expecting tonight for him this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Welcome, everyone. We have 5 candidates that have applied for Roanoke City School Board, and if they are here, I want to say thank you from all of us for your interest in Roanoke City Public Schools. And at this time, we will hear from anyone who is here to make comment on behalf of these individuals, and they are Dr. Elizabeth Jameson, Ms. Jacqueline Moon, no relation to our Miss Moon Reynolds, Arialis Cantana, Christopher Link, and Natasha Saunders. So if you are here to speak on behalf of any of these candidates, you will come forward when the clerk calls your name. And clerk, we always wait to see how many we have to determine how much time they have. Do you want to say how much time they have?
They have 3 minutes each.
You have 3 minutes, and they will put the buzzer on you, trust me. You want to call them?
Yes, I'll call 2 at a time.
Okay.
Jordan Bell is our first speaker, and next would be Elizabeth Bayer.
Thank you, Mr. Burns.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, City Council, City Manager. I am here to give my support to one of the school board members. As I always tell you, you have a very hard decision to make. All of these folks are very qualified, but I am here to lend my support to who I call Liz, Miss Liz, as she's known by everyone. I met Liz a few years ago when I was working at the Boys and Girls Club. Her daughter and my daughter are best friends, and I was working at the Boys and Girls Club, and this mom walked in, and she was just telling everybody what to do, where to go, where to be. And I said, I have to meet this lady. So I went outside, and it was Miss Liz, and ever since that day, she has been dedicated to making sure that my daughter is very well taken care of when my daughter is in her presence. Miss Liz has been dedicated to the youth through her job with the city of Roanoke, but also her volunteer work. As I said, at the Boys and Girls Club, in the community, she calls me every single day trying to figure out how she can, better serve the youth, how we can collaborate with my job at Apple Ridge Farm and her job with Parks and Rec. She will bring the support of the Latino community to the school board, which is lacking right now. And she is just a dedicated person, a dedicated mother, a dedicated friend, and a dedicated community service member. And I think that's a very important thing to be on the school board. And just again, I know from examples of her dedication and support and love for hundreds of children. And I know that the school board in Roanoke City will benefit from having someone like Liz on the school board. So again, you have a very hard decision to make. I do not want to be in your shoes, but if I had to lend my support behind anyone, it would be Miss Liz. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Elizabeth Thor, and I'm here to speak on behalf of Jackie Moon. She and I have been friends for over 10 years. Our sons have grown up together in elementary school, middle school, in upper school, and we've worked together in different school events, and I just want to say that I think she's a wonderful person, and I think she's got a wonderful focus on what matters for a member of the school board. She loves children, and she loves teachers and being supportive of the staff, and she's always a bridge between people of conflicting ideas as a problem solver. She's high energy, she is community-minded, she is civic-minded. Her background started as a very young person in the military. She served as a journalist for the Army. She had a very interesting career there. And I think that helped her develop her sense of discipline and follow-through. And she is just somebody who can be relied upon. She's loyal, she's a hard worker, she's positive, and she's just such an asset, and I think she's a wonderful catch. If you can have her for the school board, I think it would be just wonderful for the community. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
The next two speakers will be Nayela Lopez Cruz and Benjamin Denton.
She will lead us on stage.
She will?
Yes.
Okay, it's on the screen there.
Okay.
Hola, buenas tardes. Mi nombre es Nayeli López. Conozco aquí a la señora Liz Quintana, que es por la que yo vengo a hablar hoy. La conocí cuando su hija y la mía iban en tercer grado de primaria, hace ya 6 años atrás. Ahora las niñas van en octavo grado. Ella, desde que yo la conocí, siempre se acercó a mí a tratar de ayudarme siempre en lo que más pudiera ella, porque yo soy latina, hablo un poco de inglés, no perfecto, entonces siempre en la escuela hay papeles que llenar, cosas por las que ella siempre ha estado ahí. Como persona es excelente, siempre está viendo por que las niñas, adolescentes, niñas conocidas que ella tiene. Yo tengo una hija mayor que es de la edad de su hijo de ella, mayor. Siempre está impulsándola a que siga adelante con los estudios, dándole ideas de lo que ella tiene que hacer, con quién tiene que hablar para agarrar becas, impulsándola siempre que vaya hacia adelante. Siempre está trabajando con los clubs, con los deportes, impulsando a los niños que siempre tomen algún deporte, que se involucren más en la escuela, que estén más tiempo estudiando y no en otras cosas que realmente no les ayudan a ellos. Ella, si alguna persona la llama, le dice necesito que me ayude con algunos papeles de la escuela por traducirlos, o que me ayude a traducir en cualquier cosa, siempre está dispuesta a hacerlo, disponible. Sobre todo, pienso que sería de muy buena ayuda para la comunidad latina, ella estar en el puesto que ella está aplicando para esto. Nos ayudaría muchísimo a nosotros también. Siempre es muy dedicada a lo que hace y está enfocada repito, en que los niños vayan a la escuela, que saquen sus mejores grados. Igual como persona, siempre está ahí para lo que los demás necesiten. No importa lo que ella esté haciendo, siempre saca tiempo para ayudar a los demás. Siempre está ayudando. Es lo que yo puedo decir de ella.
Gracias, Mayela. Katie, are you going to interpret for us now? Katie, are you there? You're muted. We're having technical difficulties.
Well, we can call on busy.
Yeah, that might be it. Well, I guess we'll figure it out. Clerk, Madam Clerk, do you know who can find out what's happening with Katie?
Yes, our technology department back.
They're back here, yeah,
So I
okay.
just thought about them, they will know how to get Katie in.
Okay. If you would just hang in there with us. We do have a Spanish speaker, but we don't want to have a conflict with her interpreting, because she might say something that you really didn't even say.
Watch, I'm a professional.
She may not know what hat she's wearing. No, we want to make sure that we get everything exactly the way you said it, and Katie is our interpreter, so hopefully we'll get this figured out. If not, she can come back later.
I understand that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. She says Katie is muted, and she can't get a hold of Katie. Bobby or anyone knows Katie's number? I'm talking to Katie. Okay.
There's always technical difficulties. So I can sing, I can tell jokes. And we can move on to the next one, and when Katie is unmuted, Mayela, we will call you back up, and you can nod and make sure you're agreeing with everything that she said that you said. And we'll go on to the next speaker,
Okay,
Madam Clerk.
All right, the next speaker, Benjamin Denton.
Good evening. So, I first met Liz back when I was a youth pastor at Bonsack United Methodist Church. I'd been volunteering with the Boys and Girls Club for about 6 years at that point, and her son Tyler was interested in going on a trip with us. And first I had to have permission from his mama. Everybody at the club vouched for me. They'd known me for years, but she said, that's not good enough. I need to know you. And so I went to her house, and she said, you need to understand that that is my son. If something happens to him, it better happen to you too. If he falls down the stairs, you better be going right after him with it. So we went on the trip, and we had a great time, and I brought him back in one piece. And then I noticed that every time I went back to the club, Liz is talking to everybody all the time. She is going to first grade room, second grade room, teen center room, and she did not have a first grader or a second grader at the time. But she went in there, and I asked Liz, what are you doing? And she said, they're my kids. I was like, no, you have Tyler and Lily, and I'm glad. She's like, no, those are my kids. If my kids are here, this is my community, they're my kids, and I'm going to be invested in them. And I watched her give hugs, I watched her make cakes, I watched her get on boys whose grades were falling and treated them just like they were her own. Later on, I was up at Bonsack, and she came to my youth group and immediately fell in love with some of my youth and treated them just like her own. Kids from Patrick Henry, from Fleming, from William Byrd, from Lord Botetourt, they became her family. I started looking at the community and how she was getting involved, and she was on the board at the library, and she was on the board at the Boys and Girls Club, and I was like, Liz, you're a single mom who has kids who are very involved, and you are running yourself ragged. What are you doing? And she said, this is my community. This is where my roots are. This is where I need to be, and I'm going to take care of my people. And that's what she brings to the council. That's what she'll bring to the school board, is she is invested in her people, and she fights for them and advocates for them. And I have 45 seconds, so I'm going to make it a little quicker. But sorry, I'm a youth pastor. We talk too long. But she advocates for those who don't have voices. It was her telling me that her friend's autistic, and that she has friends who are transgender, and that she has friends who are Hispanic and white and rich and poor, and all the time saying, Ben, you need to hear their stories. You need to know what you and your church can do to help them out. And she was always giving voices to those who didn't have voices and saying, Ben, use your voice, use your privilege to help out. And then I'd go to her and say, Liz, am I right? Am I wrong? Am I being a little racist, or what am I doing here? And she'd always be straight with me. She's like, Ben, you have a good heart, but this is what you need to do. And that's what she does. She just brings those stories and helps people fight for others. Thank you.
Thank you, Benjamin. Madam Clerk, you got two more lined up? Or Katie, are you there? Okay.
Okay, we'll move on. Anna Goltz. And this person will need a translator, Guadalupe Lorenza Lopez. She will not. Okay. You can go ahead. 3 minutes.
Thank you so much. Hi, everybody. My name is Anna Goltz, and I'm so pleased to be here tonight. Thank you for the invitation. I am also here to speak on behalf of Team Liz. I first met Liz as a coworker. We were both brand new in town. We were both working at the food bank. And she was quickly one of my very favorite coworkers and colleagues who I met there. One of the things that I have valued so much in what I want to share with you are the 4 biggest reasons why I really value this human being, and she is one of my closest friends in the city of Roanoke. The first thing that I really value about Liz is how we complement each other. Whereas I am someone who is perhaps prone to analysis paralysis, I might spend a lot of time in observation, a lot of time studying, a lot of time researching. Liz figures it out. She is very insightful. She walks into a room, she knows what's going on, and I'll come back and be like, no, you should ask more questions. No, she knew what was going on the first time. The second thing that I learned about Liz as her colleague and coworker is she knows her way around a program budget. Right? So at the food bank, right, obviously she was in charge of the children's feedings programs. Well, one of the most valuable programs which came out of her time there was the Feed and Read program, which I know we have talked about extensively in the city of Roanoke as something we're very proud of. It helped us win the Hall of Fame Award for the National Civic League. That was Liz's idea because of her time and tenure on the library. And not only was it her idea, but she hustled and she made it happen. She stood up that program. The third thing that I think you already know about Liz, I don't really need to tell you. She's such a fierce advocate. She is fierce, she is funny, and I think that it is so important that she has present tense children in the school system. Her daughter Lily is in the middle school right now. Her son Tyler is a recent graduate, and obviously, as you know, running the Play Roanoke program, she has great insight into what's going on in the elementary schools as well. She's not someone who had their children graduate 10 years ago. She knows what school is like today in this city and what their kids are experiencing. The fourth thing that I know to be true about my very dear friend is how much she loves children. As I said, when I met her, we were both brand new in town. I was a young new mother. I didn't have any family here. I didn't know anybody. Liz was the very first person I trusted to watch my children. And I will always be grateful for so many things from her. I'm sorry. But I know that the love that she shows to my children is the love that she wants to show to every child. It is not love for my children specifically, right? My kids. She truly loves all kids, and that is what I would love for to see her bring to our school board. Thank you.
Thank you, Anna.
Hello, good evening. My name is Guadalupe, and I'm here to lend my support to Liz. Me and Liz have known each other for as long as I can remember, and I met her because I became friends with her daughter. Me and her daughter have grown a special bond for a long time, and Liz has always been someone that I can talk to without feeling judged or without feeling scared to speak up. She is someone that has always shown me support and has always encouraged me to keep going in life, keep going in school, and anything, and I can always reach out to her for my help. She is I would consider like a second mom to me. She's always there to help me in anything that I need, in any support that I need. She always brings a smile to my face when I'm feeling down. She's someone that is really trustworthy to me, and she will always be someone that I remember as a special person. And she's a very hopeful, funny, respectful person. Whenever I need her, she's always there for me. She always takes time out of her day to help me in anything I need. She's always there showing me as much support as she can. So I really think that she would be like a good person there. She's a very generous, nice, kind person. She will always bring a smile to your face. That's one thing for sure. She's really funny. But that's really all I have to say about her. Thank you.
Thank you, Guadalupe.
Thank you.
From my understanding, I got the nod from Madam Clerk that Katie, can you hear us? April Fools.
Hi, sorry for the confusion. No, we actually have an interpreter on the line now, so she should be able to help out if there's someone that's Spanish speaking.
Yes, well, was somebody there to, okay, so they didn't hear what, Mayela said, so she needs to say that all over again? Is that what's happening?
If there was a Spanish speaker that needed interpretation, there was no one interpreting.
Oh, okay.
I was actually watching the live view on your Facebook page, so I did hear what you said.
But you heard everything that she said, or do we need to have Mayela come back and repeat herself, or do you think you heard it?
I just didn't catch her name and who she was voting, who she was nominating. Other than that, I caught everything she said.
Okay, Mayela was supporting Liz Quintana.
Okay, all right.
Okay.
So pretty much, I'll go ahead and interpret everything she said. I'll try to write down. I wrote down almost everything she was interpreting. So her name is Marola. She is nominating Liz. Her kids have gone to school together for the last 6 years, and they have become close. She says Liz is someone who works hard on trying to forward someone's education. She's always telling the kids that they have to join clubs, join sports, keep studying, keep going to school, keep working hard. She's always willing to help, making sure that the kids have resources to also do their work. They're always willing to help, and she's always willing to help and be there. She's very dedicated. She has been a great help to the Latino community and also to myself. She said no matter what she is doing, no matter what's going on, she's always willing to help and help others. She's not selfish. She said also that, pretty much that she helps the Latino community, but if there's anything else you wanted to add, she just kept saying that Miss Liz helps her in all types of ways, helps her kids, helps her other kids to continue with their education and make sure that they are going to school and they have the resources they need.
Mayela, could you come forward? We want to make sure, can you tell the interpreter that that is everything you had to say, or if there's anything additional that you want to say that you felt maybe she did not capture?
¿Quieres agregar otra cosa?
No, básicamente fue lo que yo dije, que siempre está presente para todos los niños, adolescentes, está involucrada siempre en todo lo que tenga que ver con la escuela.
Yeah, pretty much, everything I had said is what she had expressed herself earlier. She's always involved in the school, always involved in the children's lives.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
You have any more?
I have more speakers. Leonez Cuevas and Chloe Johnson following her.
Hi, so I'm Liz. I'm Liz's daughter. And I think she'd be great for the city council because she's always advocating for others. She always wants to help somebody, and she loves kids. I mean, we walk to a grocery store, she's a baby. We're there for 30 minutes playing with a baby who we don't even know. Kids are really her passion. She will do anything for a child, whether it's hers or not. She's always advocating for people. She's always trying to be a voice for somebody who feels as if they haven't been heard or like their point hasn't gotten across. And she will always make sure that if you are having a conversation with her, or if you're trying to get a point across to her, that you will be heard, and that she will understand you completely, and she will understand every perspective you're trying to come to her from. She's just over. She's loud. She's definitely gonna make sure that people are understood and that they feel like they have a place. She's always helped me and my brother with school. That is her number one thing. Every day I get in the car, how was school? How was practice? How was your test? What did you do today? She's always definitely been me and my brother's number one supporter. She's definitely always there for us and other kids. Like when she comes to pick me up from the Boys and Girls Club, hi Lily's mom, hi Miss Liz, how are you? Hi Lily's mom. And that really makes her day. Like just her knowing that other kids care about her the way that she cares about them. I think she really enjoys that. And like even at like my soccer games, they'll be, oh my gosh, there's Lily's mom, there's Lily's mom. Oh, let's go say hi, let's go talk. And I feel like a lot of kids, they really look up to her. And like even at my school, she's definitely an advocate for the Latino community because she has gone into my school and translated for parents who don't know very much English. And she's definitely tried to help the Latino community in however she can in every aspect and try to make sure like, hey, we're here too and we deserve the same respect that everybody else here gets. And I really admire her for that. I admire my mom for everything she is. So I think she'd be great for the city council, for the school board, for that. Just her love for kids.
Take our jobs, right? Yeah. Thank you so much, Miss Lily.
Good evening. My name is Chloe Johnson. I'm also here in support of Liz. I met Liz while I was working at the Boys and Girls Club. I've been fortunate to work with both of her children. I worked with her eldest son while he was a student and a club member, and then as a co-worker after he graduated and he stayed working at the Boys and Girls Club. And I got to know her daughter as a club member, and then she participated in one of the jobs programs that I ran there. So during those 3 years, I got to know Liz. She's a devoted parent, she's an engaged community member, and she's a board member for the Boys and Girls Club. Her children are a joy to work with. They are thoughtful, hardworking, driven, and principled. And I think these qualities are really a testament to Liz. She's a mother figure to so many young people at the Boys and Girls Club who know they can turn to her for guidance and that she'll remain a constant in their lives. I was delighted when she joined the club board, knowing that our organization would benefit immensely from her insights as a club parent and a Southeast resident where the club is located. And I felt the same when she told me she was interviewing to be on the school board. She has both the understanding and the dedication to advance the goals of the board and offer new perspectives along the way. I've seen firsthand her commitment to academic excellence, value of the arts, athletics, and extracurriculars. No doubt she'll excel enhancing communications between community and staff. She is a liaison at heart, bringing people together and valuing different worldviews and lived experiences. She is an asset to our community, to all the young people whose lives she enriches, and I know she would be a brilliant school board member. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The next two speakers, Zachary Bird and Dana Spangler.
Hello, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak tonight. I'm speaking in support of Chris Link. He's a neighbor of mine. First of all, he asked me about 3 nights ago if I would speak, and I really wanted to, and so here I am. I thought to myself, you know, the best way to do this would be to get on ChatGPT and come up with a little, but I didn't do that. So this is really truly from me about Chris. He's a neighbor of mine. He lives on my street, and he has a daughter who's the same age as my son. They're going to go into school next year, so I think this is a really strong motivator for him to be on the school board, but as well me to be here in support of him because I know what he's like. He is someone who is really community oriented. That's sort of the word I would think of when I think of Chris. He is the president of the Raleigh Court Neighborhood Association. And so he's done a lot of work in that area, and also just thinking about our neighborhood. He was one of the first people to greet me when I moved onto that street a few years ago. He helped me pull a tree from my yard. You know, it probably doesn't relate to the school board, but it does let you think about the type of person that he is. He's always helping out. And not to talk too much about trees, but he and one of our other neighbors, I feel like he's maybe like a Johnny Appleseed of our neighborhood because he's always encouraging others to plant trees in their yard, because it's really an investment in the future of that street and that neighborhood. And so I think that thinking about the things that he's done in our neighborhood on our street alone, and then also thinking about how much he cares about the community in general, makes him a really good candidate. I basically feel that if Chris is given the opportunity to be on the school board, he will do the same sorts of things, the same community-oriented type things toward the school system as he's done in our neighborhood. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, good evening. My name is Dana Spangler, and I just want to say how apparent it is that we are lucky to have so many wonderful people that want to be on our school board, and it makes me really proud to be a part of the city. So I'm here tonight to recommend Jackie Moon for the school board. I'm honored to be able to call her my friend since both of our sons were 7 years old. They are now both seniors at Patrick Henry High School. I've always admired her involvement in our sons' schools as they've grown up. She has dedicated much of her time to the Patrick Henry PTA, most recently serving as president. She has a deep understanding of the challenges facing our schools today and is committed to finding innovative solutions. Jackie has a talent for bringing people together and creating a collaborative environment where everyone's ideas are heard and respected. Jackie will make an excellent school board member. Her passion for education, her ability to build consensus, and her dedication to the community will serve her well in this role. I strongly endorse Jackie for this position and urge you to give her candidacy serious consideration. Thanks.
Thank you.
Our next two speakers, and this is the last two, I believe, is Alice Light and Adrian Wilson.
Hello, I'm Alice Light, and I'm here to endorse Chris Link as a school board candidate. His passion for doing what is right and open-mindedness stand out to me and will for others. Our schools would benefit under Chris's leadership. His wife, Elizabeth, has been my pastor for the 13 years that I've lived in Roanoke. The Links are a gift to our Second Presbyterian Church, and I believe to the Roanoke Valley community as well. I was thrilled to hear that Chris put his name into the hat for school board. I taught public school for 17 years. 5 of those were at Westside Elementary. And I recently took a new role as preschool director of our church, where Chris's daughter attends. Chris and Elizabeth are advocates for their child's preschool and want all children and families to have the opportunities they've been able to share with their daughter. Chris is excited to get involved in Grandin Court's PTA once daughter Eleanor starts kindergarten this fall. In my new role, I'm able to have my hands supporting and advocating for many classrooms, teachers, families, and children in their early childhood years. I believe that Chris's motivation is the same. He wants Roanoke City Schools to be the place everyone wants to send their child. He is equipped to discuss delicate matters in a professional manner, support those working most closely with children. He can view topics from all sides when making decisions. I believe Chris is dedicated to supporting our public schools and all of its stakeholders. Chris Link is invested in his community, which is our community, and well-suited to represent the constituents of Roanoke City Schools.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Hello, my name is Adrian Wilson, and I want to say good evening to the Roanoke community here. And please forgive me for reading my notes. I'm not a fan of public speaking, but I felt compelled to speak for a certain candidate. Again, my name is Adrian Wilson. I have 3 children that are in Roanoke City Public Schools, and I'm here to speak in support of Chris Link for a public school board position. I've known Chris. In fact, Chris has been my longest friend in Roanoke, and I've been in Roanoke for 12 years. Chris is a remarkable candidate because he understands the needs of our community. Chris grew up in a community similar to our own in Ashland, Virginia. He understands the needs of our community because he's always valued being a useful member in his community. He demonstrated this commitment throughout his life. He started as an Eagle Scout in his youth, and I'm a Boy Scout as well. And there he learned the importance of serving others and making a positive impact on society. In college, he stayed active in church organizations and continued to put these values into action. He's currently a guiding influence for youth at Second Presbyterian Church, and he continues to mentor and support young people in our community. He presently serves as the board president of the Raleigh Court Neighborhood Association. He's in his 2nd term. I think this displays Chris's commitment to his community. As a parent of a child that's entering the public school system in the fall, Chris is greatly invested in the challenges that our schools face. And he's passionate about improving the quality of education for all students. He's committed to ensuring that every student has access to high-quality education and that our schools have the resources they need to succeed. He firmly believes in science as an engineer and fact-based approaches to teaching and focus, with a particular concern about the prevalence of anti-science rhetoric in our communities lately. As a school board member, I'm confident that Chris will bring the same level of commitment and passion to the position. He will work tirelessly to ensure that our schools are safe, supportive, and inspiring places for our children to learn and grow. I urge you all to support Chris in the upcoming school board election, and with his experience, his leadership, and his dedication to our community, he's the right choice for the position. Thank you.
Thank you. Is that our last candidate?
That was our last speaker.
I want to thank you all, everyone that came out to speak in favor of a candidate. I just want to thank you for your time. I want to thank the applicants who applied for Roanoke City School Board. We will confer on Monday, May 1st, and we will have our decision as to the individuals. We have 2 seats open that will be appointed the afternoon of May 1st, be after the 2 o'clock session. So thanks again for coming. You're welcome to stay and hear the rest of council business if you want, but we're done with the public comment piece for school board. This is your opening. If you want to, if you want to leave, you're welcome to stay.
Which one is this? I wasn't here for that.
Right there, glasses on. Put the glasses on. The red and the glasses on.
Oh, okay. All right, Madam Clerk, we're going to get back to other business right now.
That's right.
And we have a petition for appeal filed by Christina Skillen, appealing a decision of the Architectural Review Board denying a request for approval of a historical style fence that was built prior due to limited knowledge regarding the Architectural Review Board process for property located at 529 Day Avenue Southwest. Christina Skillen is the owner and the spokesperson. You all can come down, please. And then a report of the Architectural Review Board recommending that City Council affirm its decision to deny the request which is not consistent with H2 guidelines. And Bill Mason, the chairman, is the spokesperson for them. And I will begin, and I'll call on Ms. Skillen for opening remarks.
Hello, good evening.
Good evening.
So this is my first time in front of City Council. I'm not quite certain exactly how to begin advocating for my fence. What I can say is I did move here. I'm new to Roanoke in November, and I came from Asheville, North Carolina, and I really love Roanoke, and I think that it's a really great area to be in. When I moved here, I built a fence. The home that I purchased had a lot of repairs going on structurally and foundation. I have an elderly dog. I think I put in and riding, and I wanted her to be able to go outside through the front and it be a safe area. The issue for me is I had no idea there was a manual for historical guidelines when I moved here. So I began in the process of putting up the fence when I first moved. My neighbor, a really great guy who also, I think he wrote a letter on my behalf, Mac, he stated that, hey, I think there's a section of fencing in regards to the Historical Society. And I said, okay, I was unaware of that. So I got the little section that he gave me that referenced the fencing area. And what I did is I built that fence to those specifications. Everything that is factually put into that book, whether it be the measurements, the height, the spacing, all of that was done based off of those numbers that was specifically noted in that manual or that little section of it. And so we built it off those guidelines. In that section, there is nothing noted about a certificate of appropriateness. I had no idea I had to do a certificate of appropriateness for fencing. It's not even listed in the fencing chapter. So that I'm aware of. And I've been through it, but maybe there's another updated version I have not seen. So after the fence was built, and I thought that I had done a great job, we received a notice on New Year's Eve, Happy New Year's, that stated I had a city violation for my fence. So I was a little taken back, and I just did not realize. I did not try to go against the Historical Society. I was not trying to go against the grain, if you will. I know that there has been some concern because the pickets of my fence are horizontal and not vertical. But in the book, it does not explicitly state that the pickets need to be vertical. And I know that that has been a pretty big, one of the concerns that is addressed consistently. But what I would like to state is that, I know they have given examples, but the example is not a definition. It's just an appropriate possibility of way that it should be built. It's not specified. And to arbitrarily state that the example is more important than the specifications is contrary to what the requirement is. If you can't just give an example and expect somebody to say, oh, well, this is what we wanted, and if you're stating that it's what you wanted, that's not necessarily based off of the requirements in the guideline book. For me, the fence that I did put up is from the 1800s. I did give reference to that from the Lynchburg, the historical references taken from Partitioning the Landscape, the fence in the 18th century Virginia. It's considered post and board. So it is a historical, by definition, fence. So I feel personally that I have built this fence based off of the requirements that were noted in the guideline book, and that it is a historical fence. I do apologize for not having the certificate of appropriateness, but as soon as I found out each thing that I was requested to do, I did abide by. And I did contact and email. I spoke to the person in the city in regards to, I guess it's a zoning violation or code violation. So I spoke with them. And so I tried to address and cooperate as much as possible. The big issue that I feel that is taking place, though, is that it's an issue regarding a minority of individuals that do not like the aesthetics of my fence. And because it goes against their preferences. So for me, if you're having guidelines, it should be based off of the specific requirements and not just your personal feelings that you feel a fence should be this way because it's how you like it, because it is historical. It does follow the guidelines. It may not follow the example of what they have stated examples of, but that is not a specific requirement. If they would like all fences in the neighborhood to be vertical, then I think they should know that the planks or the pickets that should be utilized should all be vertical. And then that would be a specific requirement. If that had been noted, I would have followed with that request. But it was not specifically noted. I know that they state, well, there's a column and a post, but all of the posts that hold my pickets that are attached to my fence are up, they are vertical. So I'm really advocating, like I said, I really just did not try to go against the grain with the fence, but I do feel like I abided by these guidelines, and I do feel like it is appropriate, and it slopes with my house. The planks on my house are also horizontal, so to say that I needed to have a vertical fence with a horizontal, plank house, I feel like it's aesthetically pleasing and also historical. So I'm just, I would really like to be able to keep my fence if possible.
Ms. Gillen, I have a question.
Yes, sir.
For you. When you built your fence, did you get a building permit for that fence?
No, and there was a call, and I actually asked to see if there needed to be a building permit, but no building permit was noted that it was required. And I thought when I called to do that, I'm sorry, that if there was a certificate of appropriateness, they would have told me. I didn't even know certificate of appropriateness existed. I had no idea. So, until I moved here.
That's why I asked, because I used to live in the historic district as well, and I know that when I went to go, we wanted to do something with removing a shed that had been there for gosh knows how long, but it's completely termite infested.
Right.
But that shed was historically significant, so I had to get a certificate of appropriateness before I could do anything. There's that step of the building permit would have given you that awareness of that certificate of appropriateness that was necessary.
Right. That's what I wish that someone had told me, like, at that point in time, that needed to be done. I would have done that. But when I asked about the building permit, it's not necessary. So it was only a certificate of appropriateness. A permit is no longer necessary to do that. I guess a rule had changed at some point. So, I'm a little uncertain about that, so.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. Ms. Vivian Sanchez-Jones.
Hi.
Did you build the fence yourself or you hire a contractor?
No, so when I moved here, my son and also someone that I'm partnered with, they helped put up the fence for me for Christmas. Like I said, I had a really old dog, and my home, I did a lot of foundation and structural work to my home. I'm still repairing that house. So, I did apply for the permits for that. But they put the fence up for me for Christmas, and that's how that came to be. So I didn't hire a contractor. Probably if I had of, maybe they would have told me. I don't know, but most of the work I've done on my home, except for the structural stuff, has been myself.
Any more questions?
Yeah, just have a comment. Thank you for being here. Thanks for telling us the story of how this came to be. I appreciate that. You talk, and thank you for the pictures that you sent. So can you tell us a little bit more about the history of the horizontal fence? And the pictures and the examples you gave were really insightful to me.
Mm-hmm.
Can you just give me a little more context about the historical nature of these fences in other places?
Okay. Well, I know that the post and board fence was also really popular in England and America. It was noted actually in Huck Finn as being one of the most popular fences that was ever noted as one of the world's famous fence. They were actually used, or was going to be, I think I even put an excerpt, the house was intended for the President of the United States in Philadelphia by W. Birch. So these fences were actually utilized in town. They were utilized for other people in the area that were living back in the 1800s. I know it doesn't seem like it's a very popular, but actually the vertical picket fence actually came at a later date. The horizontal pickets or planks, or it's called post and board, came at a different, was actually the first fence that was put up. So,
Okay.
I wish I knew more specific.
No, that's fine.
Okay.
That's fine. And you mentioned that your neighbor gave you a portion of the handbook on the fence?
Yes.
On the fences. Was it just the portion on the fences?
Yes, at that point in time, yes, that's all I had. When I moved to the neighborhood, the first interaction that I had with the committee for Old Southwest and for the ARB, I didn't have any information from them. It was a city violation. That was the first time that I met and was actually fully aware that there was a gigantic 80-page manual. And even then, none of the people from that area came to speak with me. So I had lived there for a certain amount of time, and really, I feel like if they would like for people to, if there are concerns about homeowners adhering to historical guidelines, then it would be beneficial to provide it to the individuals upon arrival to the neighborhood. I just feel like I don't know who should have that task, but if you really would like for people to abide by the guidelines, they need to have somebody, when people move in, given that information. Because really, I stayed there for probably about a month or 2 months before I really knew the...
Yeah. Did you know when you bought the house that it was in an historic district?
I did.
Okay.
And I was well aware that I could not change the structural foundation of the home. Like, I knew I could not do additions or change different aspects of the main character, I guess, of the home. But I had no idea it dealt with fencing and certain, boxwood shrubs, and I didn't know the extent of what was required then.
Did at any time when did you see the house before you bought it?
Yes, I did.
Okay. Well, the reason I'm asking this question is because I have similar questions.
Okay.
That you have, and I live in Old Southwest. I've had 2 houses in Old Southwest. Okay. I'm curious whether our Realtors Association, any realtors, when they're selling houses in Old Southwest, notify or share this information. How is the information about the historic district and the manual, this is not really addressed to you, this is addressed to city staff and others, maybe the ARB board, Old Southwest. How is this information distributed to people? Are people who buy these houses just to assume that they're in an historic district and that they need to do the homework to find out all the information about the historic district? Or do we meet them halfway or even ahead of the game, say, welcome to this historic district, here is our manual for guidelines? Because I've heard a number of cases where people just don't have the information. It's not that they intend to do something wrong, but oftentimes their first introduction to the historical district is, you did something wrong.
Yeah.
You got a notice of violation, welcome to the neighborhood.
Yeah.
And I know that staff are doing their job, I get that. But I'm just trying to have a better understanding of how we're disseminating this information on the front end so that we don't have these situations of someone making the investment and then later finding out that the investment they've made is inaccurate with the historic guidelines. And I still don't have a clear answer to that. So anybody who can give me an answer to that tonight, I would be glad to hear it.
This question, I think, comes up every time we have one of these items, and all we can say is it's no different than zoning. you're obligated to follow the city's zoning regulations and codes. In other words, we don't come to, we don't even know when somebody moves into a neighborhood. If somebody moves into a neighborhood, you're certainly not going to get a copy of the zoning application or the building code or any of those kinds of things with it. Now, that is something that possibly the neighborhood association could take on. They know when folks move into the neighborhood. But in terms of regulations, there is a presumption that folks that own property know and will comply with all the applicable ordinances and codes. And I'm not weighing in on any of the specifics of this case, just saying if the expectation is that when people move into the neighborhood, they're going to be handed by a city code official a list of the codes that are applicable, that's not going to happen. That's just not possible.
I'm not saying the codes. I'm saying this manual of historic
Well,
guidelines, which to me is different. Is it available online?
It is.
It is available online. Is it easy to find?
No.
I think they're best. I think, Vice Mayor, I think the chairman of the Architectural Review Board will be the person that we can direct those questions to.
That's fine.
But I
have talked about this a lot, so.
But I want to keep, if everybody, has anybody else got any questions for Ms. Skillen? Because the next speaker up is Mr. Mason.
I do have one that's just maybe more hypothetical. So I know in this situation, your fence has already been built, but there would also be a situation where you could have submitted to have this one built, and had it been denied, would you still have sought this particular design based on the specifications that you had?
I think I would have gathered more information from them about the design. I would have probably advocated for the design, but I would not have built it if I had not had approval. I do feel like this is a historical fence, and I do feel like it goes with my home. But I would not have built it and went against what they had requested. I do think I would have sought, though, to have this fence. I think it's a safer version for my dogs. And so, I mean, just me personally, like my dog, anybody who walks by, dogs' mouths go like this, and a vertical fence, their paws can go through, their mouths can go through, right? And for me, I have, I had an old dog that doesn't do it, and I have another, I'm a dog lover. So whatever can protect my dogs and keep my, pets safe, and also other people, then that's probably what I would have advocated. But it is historical, and it does go with my house, but I would not have built it. No, I would not have gone against them and done something like that.
That's fine. I just asked because those are the two situations with which these come to us. Either someone's done something they shouldn't have, or someone is advocating for a particular design. It seems like in either incidence, you want this particular fence.
Yes, I do, yeah.
All right, any further questions? Note now, we're asking her, we're going to bring the chairman on to ask those other questions. Okay, any other questions of Ms. Skillen? Okay, thank you.
Okay.
You can have a seat down there, and then I'm going to ask the chairman, Mr. Mason, to come in and give their side of the vision of the instance.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. These misunderstandings, lack of knowledge, they're the worst. And we don't have a method of notification. So if there is one that, you all would recommend to staff, that would help. Every time I've been here, and I've probably been here, I don't know, half a dozen times at this point, I or members of the board have been accused of some sort of bias or elitism or, placing your opinion ahead of the guidelines, and we absolutely are trying to adhere to the guidelines and interpret them as they were given to us. And when there is occasionally a gray area, then we do have to have an opinion and interpret. This was not such a case. Shown are examples of appropriate wooden picket fences. That is the very specific page in the guidelines. I've got to assume if she got something that shown are examples of appropriate wooden picket fences. They are not post and board fences or picket fences. That's really it. As far as how the decision was made. Yes, sir. Yeah.
One question I think is on my mind is, when we talk about the pickets, is there anything in the design guidelines that states that it needs to be vertical picket?
Again, I mean, shown are appropriate wooden picket fences. I've got this historical dictionary of architecture and construction. Believe me, more than you would like. Picket fence. A fence formed of a series of vertical pales, posts, stakes, rods, etc. Sometimes sharpened at the upper end, which are joined together by horizontal rails. I mean, there wasn't any debate among, your ARB if this was a picket fence. No.
Vice Mayor, I sort of, when you were asking questions, I thought they were more directed to him. Do you have any questions?
No, Bill, thank you for all that you do, and I know that you all are, you really don't, in my mind, you don't have a bias. You're interpreting the guidelines as they're presented to you.
Yes, sir.
And I know that you all are, I don't know that it applies to this, but I know you all have been working to update those guidelines. And I did have a couple other questions. Let me find them here. I guess the only other question I have, I didn't have that many. I noted that oftentimes when the vote comes to us, it's usually unanimous. This one, it was kind of split. And I couldn't tell in the minutes if there was conversation among the board members as to why there was a difference of opinion, if that was on interpretation, or if there was another matter related to this. I don't know if you have any insights on that.
I don't think there was another matter. I think she has a compelling emotional argument, and that probably, figure, would sway a couple votes.
If you're done.
That's all I have.
Okay.
That's all I have.
My first question, which is unrelated to this directly, but where are you all in the updating of the guidelines? Remember in July of last year was when that was brought up most recently, and I know there's been a time before that, just to know, where are they in that process?
So we had three things that were recurring, and we were trying to see whether or not we could come up with a solution for that. One of them was metal roofing replacements and how to go about doing that. And then whether or not, all the windows need to be preserved. There's actually historical precedent for preserving the front windows, and maybe the sides and back could be changed and updated. And what was the third? The metal roof and what was the third?
Solar.
Oh, solar panels, yeah. Yeah, and whether or not those were accepted. So we were looking at those three things. We were not trying, Mr. Pretty, to do a wholesale. So we got through a good bit of discussion, have some agreement on some of that, and we have a historic preservation camp coming to Roanoke to give us some instruction to help us, sort of nail down if we wanted to make any recommendations to you all. And that camp is 8th of June, I believe. The staff actually got a grant to bring this group to us, and we got the letter this week that's been nailed down. And so we kind of paused any discussion of changes in the guidelines until we could have this camp.
The other question is that I heard your characterization referring to the emotional aspect of the argument, which I do think is also compelling. But what I heard her largely refer to was looking for specifications as they're listed in here. And I appreciate that the pictures do display vertical pickets mostly and say that they are appropriate, but I don't think the designs that are presented are the only fences that are completely appropriate. And I guess my question is technically, what was wrong with the specifications of the fence? Did it meet all of the spacing and things otherwise, other than the vertical aspect? Was everything else in compliance as it would be under these guidelines, or was that not even considered because of the horizontal nature of it?
I would say it was not considered because of the horizontal nature of it.
Okay, so you can't say that it was denied for the other reasons.
No, it didn't fit the guidelines, they're vertical.
All right, yes, sir. Mr. Wilson.
Couple questions for you. First, just for my own clarification, when building a fence, do we need a building permit or not in the city of Roanoke?
I understand that recently changed, that you can build a fence in the front yard without a permit and at a given height. No,
Thank you
okay.
for this.
Yes.
Hi there. Jillian Papa-Moore for the record. During the pandemic, the shutdown, lockdown in particular, one of the process improvements that we passed, and also an amendment to the zoning ordinance, was to remove the requirement for a zoning permit for fences in addition to small accessory structures. However, the requirement for a certificate of appropriateness does remain, as well as all of the zoning regulations as they pertain to placement, height, and level of opacity or spacing of solids to voids of the fence materials still are in place in our zoning ordinance. We simply do not require the permit. I should say that a certificate of appropriateness does require an application and an inspection by staff, similar to a permit.
Thank you, John.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd like to make two other comments. I think the first is to Vice Mayor Cobb's point about how do we get people to know about this beforehand. And as a realtor, when I sell something in Old Southwest, I tell people, I say, hey, don't touch the windows, don't touch anything until you get your certificate of appropriateness, because that's what's going to happen here in this area. Now, I know that I am not every realtor in Roanoke. And so that might be a way for us to get that education out to folks in a simpler way, is to educate the realtors that, hey, if you have somebody buying in Old Southwest, this is what you need to be telling them before they make that purchase, so that they understand the risks of being, the risks of being in.
Benefits.
Yes, there are lots of benefits of being in there too, yeah. The other thing is, I noticed, I looked at the historical references that were given to us. Those historical references are going back to the 1700s, 1799. Roanoke wasn't founded until 1890s. So they're different historical periods, and I don't find that the horizontal is necessarily meeting the period of when Roanoke was founded. And so that's where, if I had seen more that were from this actual time period that looked like that, then I might be more willing to call it historically accurate. But when looking at those ones that were given, they weren't at the same time period.
All right, any other questions? Yes, sir.
Minor more comments before we vote, if we're moving into that, or if we're still in the question phase.
We still have to hear from people that want to speak.
I will wait for the public hearing then.
I didn't understand.
That I have comments to make, but I don't have any more questions at this time. If we wait till, do people sign up and we allow a public hearing before I make my comments?
Thank you. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Mr.
Bill. Madam Clerk, two people signed.
Yes, we have two speakers, Marissa Yee, okay, and James Haynes.
Hey, friends. I actually haven't known
Christina that long, but when I heard her
Excuse me,
story.
pull that mic down a little bit, right there, okay.
I haven't known Christina that long. I'm actually here to support Jackie Moon, and I was so thrown back by what's happening with my new friend that I felt compelled to speak. First of all, vertical fences don't exist without horizontal support, so there's no ratio of vertical to horizontal planks in this guidelines. The fence adds a beautiful aesthetic, as y'all have seen, to the neighborhood. The design itself is historic. Some of y'all know I grew up in Germany in a little village, and I remember that design around our farms. Glasses. Roanoke should be the welcoming community it claims to be, and this can't be her first and lasting impression of us. And if the government's going to police this kind of guideline, they need to be responsible for informing residents, not realtors. It's not on your exam. So that's all I really have to say. I apologize for some of the first impressions you've had of Roanoke. We are so welcoming. Okay.
All right, next speaker, Madam Clerk.
James Haynes.
See if I can get this in the right spot. Mr. Mayor, members, thank you. I am here. I've lived in Old Southwest for over 30 years. I'm a general contractor. As I understand it, you do not need a building permit for a fence, as I understand it. At any rate, I'm here to support Christina's fence. We moved to the neighborhood, like I say, over 30 years ago, and one of the reasons we moved here was the diversity of the neighborhood, both in architectural and personnel. So we enjoy the different aspects. I applaud Christina and her folks' creativity and insight into doing something a little bit different than everybody else. That's one thing I like about the neighborhood. There are a lot of examples of homes that are different instead of cookie cutters. Mr. Realtor, thank you for doing your thing. Please spread the word to your other folks. Realtors have been a problem for the neighborhood not giving out enough information. Mr. Mayor, folks, thank you very much.
Thank you. Yeah, hold on. The rules are that you need to sign up to speak. Are you speaking on behalf of?
I was unaware that I needed to sign up. The vote was not there when I got there.
Okay. We'll let you speak.
Thank you.
Oh, I will.
My name is Nick Williams. I'm the one that built the fence for Miss Skillen. Basically, we built the fence, as she was saying, for her old dog that was sickly and just wanted a place to lay out in the sun. I'm sorry, I'm spacing. Let me go grab my notes. I'm so sorry. I apologize for that. As she stated, the house had a lot of foundation repair in multiple areas of the home. With that being the case, they had to take the rear porch off, so the dog couldn't even go outside in the backyard. So I built the fence as fast as possible in the front yard, so she can have a place to, like I said, lay out in the sun, get some fresh air. In regards to the fence and building it, I had made a call prior to her even moving to Roanoke, to the Old Southwest. I called the number on oldsouthwest.org. I asked the lady that I spoke to about painting the house. She stated, you can paint the house any color you want. You can paint it purple and orange. And I asked her about a fence. I asked her if there was like a building permit for a fence. She said, no, there's no building permit for a fence. She didn't mention anything about a COA or anything like that. As Ms. Skillen stated, the fence was built to measurements noted in the H2 guidelines. The planks are 3.5 inches wide. The space is 1 3/4 inches, and it's 42 inches tall, or under 42 inches tall. And it also follows the slope of the yard. All the posts are oriented towards the home instead of the street. I followed it to the T, including, and I actually have the excerpt from the H2 manual, describing a picket fence, which I appreciate Mr. Mason giving a better example. The picket fence, a fence formed of wood or metal pickets generally spaced a uniform distance apart that provides varying degrees of visual screening or enclosure. That doesn't mention anything about being vertical, horizontal, cattywampus. It doesn't mention anything like that. So that's what I went off of. If I would have known that it would have been a vertical fence, that was a thing, then I would have talked to Ms. Skillen about getting one. But I worked with the knowledge that I had. Also, the fence, as it stands now, is incomplete. Because we got the notice before the fence was actually complete, the fence still needs caps on all the posts as stated in the manual, which it will have. And with it being pressure-treated wood, it could not be painted immediately due to the fact that it would cause the paint to peel and bubble over time. And so we want it to dry out a little bit and have, a good paint adhesion. Also, she's having her house painted in May, and we're going to match the colors of the house with the fence, so it all blends together and looks really nice instead of the natural wood color. That's all, thank you. Any questions for me?
Are you part of the board, you're not part of the board of directors of Old Southwest Incorporated, are you?
No, sir.
Okay, that's all.
All right, thank you. Have a good evening.
Now, gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, you have to sign up. You just can't listen to this and raise your hand and come up.
There was nowhere to sign up when I got here. The paper was already inside. The doors were locked to get in the building, so I could not sign up.
There's a deadline to sign up prior to the meeting.
Okay.
I saw it take the book away right before you started to speak to do your invocation.
All right, what's the pleasure, of council? You all want to allow this? I don't want to get these meetings where everybody raises up their hand and have something to say. There's a protocol and a rule that you have to abide by. Let me ask you this, Ms. Scudder, that had you seen this letter from the Old Southwest saying that if they supported the Architecture Review Board's decision to not allow this, but they said they would be willing to support you and willing to build a new fence or to accommodate you. Are you aware of that?
No, sir. No, sir, I'm not. I was
Okay. Let me allow our residence realtor to read that and go ahead.
Yeah. So this is the statement from the Old Southwest Board that was sent to us. Old Southwest Incorporated supports the Architectural Review Board in its efforts to interpret and uphold the guidelines as they are currently written. Should City Council deny the homeowner's appeal, we would like to offer our assistance to the applicant in removing the current fence and constructing one that is in keeping with the guidelines. We understand that property owners are often not fully knowledgeable regarding the ARB process, and as a gesture of goodwill toward a neighbor, we would like to assist in whatever way we are able. Thank you, the Board of Directors from the Old Southwest Incorporated.
I just want to make you aware of that.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I did not know that. The only thing I had seen from that committee is that they too had went against it, and like I said, I was unaware, but thank you.
All right, Mr. Pretty.
Just some comments to make, if we're prior to the vote portion. Well, thank you for coming, first off, and speaking and advocating on your behalf for your fence. I'll say, personally, I'm not too keen on the aesthetic of it, but that's my interpretation. You have your interpretation of what you want in your home, and I think every homeowner should have that right. I'm particularly focused on the specifications aspect of it, and I'm at least disappointed that the specifications, at least if they were brought up by the individual, weren't considered in the denial aspect and just focused primarily on the horizontal aspect of the fence itself. I'll say, when I moved into Old Southwest, I also, one of your neighbors, I knew about the guidelines. My husband did not, which was fun very quickly when he decided he started wanting to change things. But he learned them very quickly, and we'll have some more applications we have to put in the future, and I've let him know how important it is to follow them. But as I spoke to some other residents who have also moved to the area, they've talked about architectural review boards from where they come from, and how they're focused as more of a resource for helping people. A lot of what we see happen with this council is people will come, they can't find the right material, and they'll go, and the architectural review board will deny them, but they won't be able to point them to exactly where they can get it or some reasonable alternative as easily. I feel that this is more of an onus on us because it's how we've structured the system to be more punitive, really. And while it is supposed to be permissive for people to seek, I would hope that the Architecture Review Board could be more of a resource to people in the future. And if that's something that we have to do resource-wise, maybe even just looking at how we determine what their mission statement is so that when people move in, they're aware of what these things are and they're provided with something and to go like, oh, these are what my options are and here's someone who's going to help me make it happen. This is why I'm proud to live in this neighborhood. I know a lot of people I think who are moving in now are really getting that other aspect of more of like the slap on the wrist. You're not supposed to do that. And that, as Marissa shared earlier, it's not really a fun welcome to the area. And we want to show that Roanoke is welcoming. I will still go back to my original point that I don't particularly love the design, but I'm concerned with the specifications aspect. And if it's not clearly in there, that's why the first question I wanted to ask was, where are we in updating the guidelines? And I understand you'll have a big task and are focusing on other areas, but even if this can be something that's brought into it, I hope you won't automatically roll out horizontal fences when y'all decide to update it, but to really review these, and when you're reviewing them, look at how they can be used as a resource, because I know that's what I expect your board sees when they're putting together these things, because you want to preserve a certain integrity to the neighborhood. I think that's all the comments I really wanted to make. I want to thank you for coming. This is my first appeal on council. It's much more fun than sitting in the audience.
All right.
I'd like to make a motion, or you?
I just wanted to make a comment. I want to be clear that the questions we ask, I don't think that the ARB is, that their work or their intentions are to be punitive. I mean, their task is to interpret and apply the guidelines. And the primary reason for that is because the transformation that's taken place in Old Southwest is extraordinary. When we think about where it was 40, 50 years ago, I get that. I think there are some individuals in Old Southwest who are very punitive in their interpretation of it, but I don't think that the ARB per se is. But we have these guidelines for a purpose, and I also think the ARB, tries to be resourceful and look at, as do staff. Here are some different options we can consider. Here are some different materials we can consider. I've not found any of our staff to be punitive in their approach. I'm a little sad to hear that when you called the permitting office, whoever you called, and the fencing came up, that there wasn't more clear direction about that, but maybe the person didn't know, like, that you were intending to build a fence, or I don't know. That's speculation on my part. I just wanted to make that statement because I think the board works really hard. We've given them a task to do. The staff works really hard on this, and I'm a person who likes to have a win-win, and so I'm thinking, what's the win-win for you here? If we deny this and you have to take the fence down, that doesn't feel like a win to me. I appreciate the offer of the board, but I'm still a little frustrated that I think we make the assumption, and Bill pointed it out with the pictures, that pickets are vertical. They're not horizontal. So, if we need to broaden that definition or be more clear about it, I think that's a helpful suggestion. But I just wanted to say those two things. I want to thank you for being here tonight and for investing in our community. I think it's And investing in an historic district with houses that are beautiful and always need repair. They do. And the cost of repairs are getting higher and higher, and the cost of replacement materials are getting higher and higher. And we have to think about that when we're asking people to sustain these houses that they're buying and caring for. And I don't see you as someone who is just trying to, turn your house into a hot mess. We've got some slumlords that could learn a few lessons from you and some of our other people who've invested in making their houses beautiful. But I just want to thank you, and I want to thank our Architectural Review Board for the work that they do, because I think everybody's trying to get to the best solution here, and I'm just torn because I'm not feeling like there's a win-win here. And maybe I'm just not seeing it.
All right, was that motion?
Based upon the evidence presented to this council at today's hearing, I move that the decision of the Roanoke City Architectural Review Board on February 9th, 2023 be affirmed, and that no certificate of appropriateness be issued to allow the approval of a historical style fence that was built prior to the property, built prior for property located at 529 Day Avenue Southwest, as set forth in the application for certificate of appropriateness on the ground that the installation is not architecturally compatible with the structures or historic landmarks in the H2 district.
Second.
All right, it's a second, all right. The motion's been made. I'm gonna ask the clerk if she would call the roll on the motion.
Mr. Pretty?
Nay.
Vice Mayor Cobb?
No.
Ms. Whiteboy?
Aye.
Mr. Volleson?
Aye.
Ms. Moon Reynolds?
Aye.
Ms. Sanchez Jones? And Mayor Lee?
Aye. And the motion to affirm has been carried. Thank you. All right. We're down now to hearing of citizens upon public matters. Madam Clerk, do we have any citizens signed up to speak?
Yes, we do. Okay, we have 4 speakers. Our first speaker is Laura Hartman, and the second speaker is Ashley Curtis.
All right. Welcome, Ms. Hartman.
Thank you. Good evening. I want to say happy tax day, more or less. The members of the Bus Riders of Roanoke Advocacy Group are here, and we want to thank you for using our tax dollars with care. We believe that a great city deserves great transit, and great transit requires funding. So please, in your budget deliberations going forward, we ask that you please fully fund Valley Metro so that they can continue to serve our community well. And I would like for you to join me in encouraging Valley Metro to do even better in the future. The Bus Riders of Roanoke need more bus service, more frequency, longer hours, more places, more accessibility. Because as it stands now, our bus system levies a hidden tax on riders, a time tax. When the bus only comes once an hour, you pay. You pay with your minutes and your hours. We long for the day that the transit time tax is reduced to a reasonable rate through generous funding and active support for full staffing of Valley Metro. Until that day comes, we're here as advocates. Bragg's slogan, "Buses are for everyone," is aspirational. Not everyone can afford to take the bus right now because that time tax is so steep. In order for buses to truly be for everyone, we need to wisely use the city budget to support the great transit that our neighbors deserve. Frequency is freedom. Longer hours are freedom. Greater range of buses is freedom. We all deserve this freedom to get up and go to work, to go to school, to shop, to connect. We deserve great transit. So I invite you to please join Bragg as we work towards this vision. We meet the first Thursday of the month at 5:30 in the Gainsborough Public Library, and all are welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker.
Hello. The intersectionality between public health and public transit is a topic that is not often discussed, but very well should be. The fact that we are currently in a city in particular is a very opportune place for me to talk about this intersectionality. First, let me start by talking about personal vehicles. I am almost positive that many of us in this room have our own vehicles, and I am almost positive that a majority of us drive our personal vehicles almost daily. Well, most of us probably don't think about the consequences of what driving these personal vehicles does to our health. The exhaust from personal vehicles contributes to urban heat islands. In an oversimplification due to time constraints, urban heat islands are urban epicenters of microclimates that exist anywhere from 5 to 10 degrees warmer than the surrounding environment. There are many reasons for this, all I unfortunately can't get into. However, one of the contributing factors to urban heat islands is concentrated emissions from vehicles. Unfortunately, there are many negative health outcomes due to vehicle exhaust. No one wants to breathe in vehicle exhaust. We all know how it feels when a diesel truck goes barreling down the road and our car fills with exhaust, making it rather hard to breathe. Well, urban heat islands are places of higher incidence rates of asthma due to a higher rate of particulate matter. What comes out of our car exhaust? Particulate matter. Imagine that. Children are especially at higher risk because their respiratory system is not fully developed yet. Imagine you have an undeveloped respiratory system. It's 5 to 20 degrees hotter than the surrounding areas, and you're gasping for breath. That sounds absolutely miserable, yet so many people face that sad reality. Unfortunately, there are countless negative health outcomes from a society dead set on personal vehicles, but I do not have the time to focus on them all. So what's the solution? I'm glad you asked. Public transit is the solution. If buses were well funded and people felt the need to replace personal vehicles with public transit, emissions would significantly decrease, leading to a healthier environment for us all. This may not seem like an issue that you relate to, but I hope I can convince you otherwise, because what's more personal than the air we breathe? So I say to you, a great city such as Roanoke deserves great transit. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Joseph Park, and our last speaker is Jamie Brooks.
All right, Mr. Brooks here?
Joseph Park not here?
Joseph Park.
Okay, he's not here, so our next speaker is Jamie Fain Brooks.
If you'll give me just a moment to get it pulled up. Good evening. Public transit and public health, two seemingly unconnected ideas, are very strongly intertwined. Imagine a scenario with me. A single mother working long hours to make ends meet has a child who needs medical attention. Today, unfortunately, is a Sunday. There is the option of calling an ambulance, but that is simply not something that everyone can afford, especially not her. She also doesn't have a car. While this may seem to be a very specific scenario, these are very much problems that our community faces. So the issue stands as so. With no car, no bus, and an ambulance is too expensive, what is she to do? Fortunately, most of us are lucky enough to not be in this situation. But the truth is that there are people all over our city for whom this is their reality. When the buses do not run, their life is put on hold. But medical emergencies cannot be put on hold. Another thing that later service would improve is public safety. At our last BRAG meeting, one of our members admitted that after getting off Amtrak late at night, she is forced to walk for 2 miles to get home. She also mentioned that she has informed her family of what to do should she not make it home ever again, which for her is a painfully real possibility. I am not calling for 24-hour service. I am aware of the difficulty to have such a thing at this time, but we absolutely should have extended hours for our buses and Sunday service. Public transit does save lives. Thank you.
Does that conclude?
Yes, that's the last speaker.
Okay. Well, just let me say to each of you all that came up to speak tonight that council sets this time aside really as a priority for you to be heard and all matters will be referred to our city manager for response or recommendation or report to the council if he deems that appropriate. All right? So thank you all for coming out. Okay. There being no further business to come for the council, well, that's one other thing. I want to make an announcement that the dedication for Miss Estelle H. McCadden Park, formerly Kennedy Park, will be held by the new park sign on Friday, April 28th, beginning at 11 o'clock a.m. And most citizens in this community know of Estelle, and we're dedicating that park to her. So next Friday, April 28th at 11 o'clock a.m. Come out if you can. Thank you. All right, being no further business, we're going to be in recess until Thursday, April 27th at April 27th, 2023, here in the council chamber for the purpose of conducting public hearings on the city of Roanoke's recommended fiscal year 2023-2024 budget at 7 o'clock p.m. And our annual plan update to the 2020-2024 HUD consolidated plan and proposed real estate tax increase at 7:10 p.m. So look forward to seeing everybody on Thursday, the 27th, 7 o'clock. Thank you and good night.
In order to get the confrontation to be over with.
I never understood before this conversation what that feels like for her. She panics, feels trapped, like she needs to